Hi everyone, it's Laura here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video I'm going to show you how to create a birthday card using the Gerda Steiner designs on the table stamp set. As a first step, I started working on my images. I am stamping them with scrapbook.com premium hybrid ink on some Bristol Smooth cardstock by Strathmore, because for today I will be doing some coloring with my Z-Cling Color Real Brush markers. So I am using a hybrid ink which works with both water and alcohol-based coloring media, and I'm using the Bristol Smooth cardstock because the Z-Cling Color Real Brush markers blend very smoothly on this type of cardstock. I'm making sure that I have plenty of smaller images to fill my scene, and then once they are all stamped, I can start coloring. For the cat and the dog, I will be using two markers and then I will blend them out with a paintbrush loaded with some water. For the cat, I am using some warm grays. These are markers number 96 and 901. I am starting by laying down my shadows with my darker marker, and I am adding the shadows as if the light is on the top left of the screen. I am then going to blend out the dark marker with my lighter marker, and finally I will use a paintbrush loaded with some water to blend everything out. And because you're not working on watercolor cardstock, you want to make sure that you don't add too much water to your paintbrush and therefore to your paper. For this reason, next to my jar of water, I have a little paper towel that I can use to dry my brush so that I can make sure that I'm not going to wet the paper too much. For the dog, I am using markers number 60 and 61, and also in this case I am first laying down the shadows with my darker marker. I am blending that out with my lighter marker, and I am using circular motions so that I don't get stripes and I get a nice and smooth blend. And finally I am coming in with my paintbrush loaded with water, so the paintbrush is just a little bit damp, it's not completely wet. And I'm blending everything out. Also for the dog, I am adding the shadows as if the light was coming from the top left of the screen. So I have the darkest areas being on the right and lower portion of each section of the image. And also I have a shadow right above his muzzle, because that part of his face is receded with respect to the muzzle itself, and therefore I'm going to have a shadow there. For his nose, I am using marker number 68, and I'm making sure to leave a small highlight to make it look like it's shiny. And then, because I wanted a bit more contrast, and also I felt the result I got with the first layer of color wasn't as smooth as I wanted it, I went in with a second layer on both the cat and the dog. But this time all I did was to add the darker marker in the same shadow areas that I marked before, and then I'm going to use my paintbrush to blend that color out towards the highlight. And in order not to leave watermarks on my images, when I'm using the paintbrush, I am covering the entire area, so I'm making sure that the whole section that I'm coloring is equally wet. For the inside of the cat's ears, I used marker number 220, and then I added some striations to the fur of the cat to give him a little bit of extra detail. For these smaller images, I only used one marker and then blended that out with water. I chose number 42 for my blue, number 25 for my pink, and number 52 for my orange yellow. And for these smaller images, I'm doing some really quick and simple coloring, because these are just accents and the focal point of the card will be the cat and the dog. I colored the flowers as if they were daisies, so the centers are yellow and the petals will be white, so I am adding some shading with marker number 302. And for the vase I used marker number 803, and then for the little band in the center I used again marker number 302. I colored the cupcakes with marker number 67 and added a bit of texture with marker number 61. And once my coloring was done, I fussy cut my images. When I do fussy cutting, I find it useful to first separate all the images and then cut them one by one, so that I don't have the cardstock in the way. The scissors I'm using are the EK Success Cutter B scissors, and these are really comfortable for fussy cutting because they're very sharp and very precise. But if you want, there are coordinating dies available for this stamp set, and I will link them in the description box down below as well as on my blog. I then die cut some more Bristol Smooth cardstock with the Fawn large stitched rectangle Stackables and my favorite things, Peacock Wonky Windows Die-namics. And I created a brick wall effect on this panel using distress ink in Pumice stone and blending it over a stencil by my favorite things. Because the idea was to have a little scene in which the dog and the cat would be peeking through the window and wishing the recipient of this card happy birthday. The name of the stencil is Small Brick Wall Stencil, and this again is by my favorite things. Because the stencil was not long enough to cover the entire panel, I shifted it downwards, I masked off the part that I had already sponged, and I completed my design. I used the Grassy Fields Die-namics and the Fawn large stitched rectangle Stackables to cut two grassy panels that I am now adding color to using distress inks in Mowed and Twisted Citron. I'm blending Mowed at the bottom and Twisted Citron at the top, because this way I am adding not only color but also dimension to these panels. And the cardstock that I'm using is again Bristol Smooth cardstock by Strathmore, because it's really easy to blend distress inks on this cardstock. I am stamping the sentiment Happy Birthday from the On the Table stamp set by Gerda Steiner Designs on the grass panel that will be at the front. And for the background of my window, I ink blended distress inks in Peacock feathers and Tumbled glass on another piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock, again trying to create an ombre effect to give dimension and interest to this panel too. And I also added a distressed look to it by spritzing some clean water and dabbing off the excess with a paper towel. I started building my scene by first gluing the grass panels to the bottom of my card front. I backed the window with my ink blended background, and then I adhered the cat and the dog as if they are peeking through the window. And I think these critters are absolutely adorable. I added one more present to my grassy borders, and then to complete the scene around the critters, I glued this vase with flowers behind the dog. I made sure I had enough glue to hold all the pieces down, and I left them to dry with an acrylic block on top. Finally, because I wanted to fill up the window a little bit more, I stamped the flowers in the flower vase on another piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock by Strathmore, again with scrapbook.com premium hybrid ink, and I colored them quickly with the same Zickling Color Real brush markers that I used for the flowers in the vase. I used my EK Success Cutter B scissors to cut the image, leaving a small white border as I have done for the rest of the images in today's card, and as I like to generally do to mimic the look of die cuts. And then I tucked my flower bouquet under the top left corner of my window to fill up the scene a little bit. I mounted everything on a top folding A2 card base, cut at 4 1/4 by 11 inches and scored at 5 1/2 inches, and that finished off my card. And here is the final result. Another cute birthday card to add to my stash and send to my crafty friends. And that's it for today. If you guys enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comments below, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. You can visit my blog for the full list of supplies and I'll catch you guys soon with the next one. Ciao!